Hey there, Bethany. Welcome to the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast. We are pumped. We're pumped to chat. It's been a long time coming, and we're excited. Your session for the Make Math Moments virtual summit is coming up. Where we want to talk all things that we want to talk fact fluency. We want to talk math anxiety. We got a list. We got a list. Let's get into it. But what how are things going? Whereabouts are you coming from today? Fill our listener in on all things Bethany right now.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to join you. This very alliterative math space. I
Right.
can get with it. I appreciate it. I'm in Southern California, and it has been like 102 degrees.
Oh my gosh!
And now today it was like cold and foggy, and my toddler was like, "What is happening? What fog? So I'm very excited. I said, put on your jacket. It was a very like fall moment. It's October, so
right.
The pumpkins are out, but the sweat is also out. So it's
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm
doing great. I have a 3.5-year-old, and so it's difficult to have any conversation that doesn't involve him. So I'm sure he'll come up again because he's pretty, toddler. Are you parents?
Yes.
We are. Yes.
I have 3 daughters, but they're all teenagers now. So we're in teenage world. They're all in high school, and there's all the high school drama happening. It's. But you're right. Every conversation is about them.
Yeah. My best friend has a teenager, and I was asking her something about. This was last year. I was asking her something about potty training, and she was like, "What?" She said, "Do you know when the last time was that I thought about potty training?" It's a whole different world.
Different worlds.
It's like what we were talking about before we hit record. It's like your brain just dumps stuff that you don't think about anymore, and you don't want to think about, because it's like if you even talk to me about like what I did and what we did, like I have no, like we're getting completely sidetracked here. But I love it. I love it.
Podcast.
Math is everywhere. But everything is math, right? Come on now.
Exactly. But I'm convinced that like in the human experience completely, like your brain is wired to forget all of that stuff that you went through, all the hard stuff that you went through, because now when you're older, you're like, yeah, kids like every waking moment is amazing with my child. And it's like, and then you tell you're as a you're getting ready, you're telling your own kids that, so they're like, they keep the species going. Otherwise yes. we would all be done.
I know. Except
such a pessimistic view of I have.
Is like my brain will like forget that until it's like 2 a.m. and I'm trying to fall asleep, and then you remember like every negative thing, So anyway, sorry, that's a different.
No worries. Well, hey, these are the moments that we remember or we don't remember. So now let's
the moments that matter. Is that
the moments that matter and remember? But let's spin it. Let's ask you a moment about math. Like when we say math class, what would be your math moment? Like what comes to mind that sticks with you all these years about math and math class?
Yeah, I feel like it's unfortunately the moment that comes out first is a negative one.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the genesis, shall we say, of my math anxiety when a teacher told me, this is in high school, told me that I don't belong here. And he said, "You don't belong here." And, I think
that's crazy.
To his credit, I don't really want to give him any credit, but to his credit, I think legitimately, like I wasn't ready for that math course. So, but what my brain, talking about brains, the way I processed it was I do not belong in mathematics, in the world of math. Math isn't for me. I'm not a math person. So I really extrapolated, right? I took it on as part of my identity. I was like, right, you're right. I don't belong here. And so I think that moment has really shaped the way that I think about mathematics, and I think about what math gets to be and who math gets to be for. And I think that really influences my teaching. And so in some ways, I'm grateful for it after a lot of processing and some therapy, and for reals, like, and reclaiming mathematics. I reclaimed it as a grown woman after I had already gotten my college degree, when I didn't technically need to be, this is before I was teaching in the classroom. And I genuinely reclaimed mathematics. I said, oh, and I discovered a whole new relationship with math. But that moment has been kind of the, I don't know, the moment that I've measured so many moments of math against.
And I certainly don't wish your experience on anybody, Bethany, but I certainly have a similar one. Like that was exactly my experience as a secondary student, where by grade 10, it was basically you are just not a math person. Like, and that's it for you. You have to find a different path. This is not for you. But I will say that that is kind of our superpower as teachers, because we refuse to let that be the experience that our students have. And so that means that we are going to position ourselves to create an accessible and empowering experience for our students. And I think had we not had that ourselves, had math come really easily for us, I don't know that we would be as passionate about ensuring equitable access to higher mathematics for all students. So as much as that was a negative experience, I feel that for myself as well. It's what has given me so much inspiration in doing this work. And I know that that's the same for you. And it lends so well to your topic for the summit about the power of tools and just how unutilized they are, and how they're such a great way to create access and to create, conceptual understanding for students in a way that's such a powerful, barrier breaker. So can you talk to us a little bit about why Tool Talks, why you're, advocating for the use of tools in classrooms?
Yeah, I think that I want to say too that, touching on your point, there's a way to, as somebody, especially in early childhood ed, I feel like, because I'm in the K through 2 land primarily, primarily kindergarten, and then for early childhood ed, and then the math that I kind of love working with kids the most on is our early mathematicians up through grade 2, etc. But I think too, part of my role is not only to help make the classroom, like help cultivate a space where our students can feel like math is for and about them, but also the parents as well. Mm-hmm. And I feel like part of my job as a kindergarten teacher has so often been to make space for parents to experience math in a new way. Because so many of the parents or caregivers that come into the classroom, or that I have conversations with, whether it's in a conference or back to school night or whatever, or at the gate in the morning, has really reflected a sense of trauma about their own school experience. And many parents or caregivers also kind of reflect back this fear of mathematics, or this idea that math isn't for them. And I've had parents tell me, oh yeah, I wasn't a math person either. Or, oh, no. Like, or when we've had talk to your parents about math, like, I don't use math. And it's coming from a real place that the parents or caregivers truly believe that, right? But the way that they're talking about mathematics is impacting the way our students, our kindergartners are thinking about math, right? And at that young age, it's so amazing to see how quickly and how early math anxiety presents, right? And I definitely don't blame parents and caregivers as the only way that happens, but it's a big opportunity for healing and repair around their own math experience as well.
Totally. Completely agree. Do you get a sense that, and this is, I think what I'm trying to maybe convey here too is related to tools and manipulatives and conceptual understanding, is, do you think even at the early elementary level, there's still a rush to get to the abstract, to get to the, let's make sure that we're basic math facts, even at that such an early level and we always hear it as the, let's prepare them for the next grade level. Do you feel like that's related to like why parents are, still speaking this way because they learned it? Like one of the things that I've always heard from parents is that they hated math, but they still want it taught the way that they learned it. And it's really probably because they want to be able to be in a position to help their student or their child when it's time. But do you feel like there's this pressure at, say, the early grades to get to the abstract before they really have this understanding of the conceptual understanding of the concepts?
Well, I definitely, I think that the reason I get so jazzed to talk about tools, and I know it's a virtual conference, so it's a little different. I don't have the tools
Right.
in front of you, the physical tools in front of you to like try solving problems with this and without. But I think one of the things I like to remind educators is, one, like, what is that rush for, right? To get to the abstract. And really, I think unlocked so much of my love of teaching math once I started studying cognitively guided instruction and really focusing on how students make sense of concepts and how they come to understand an idea and how they can picture and visualize. And I think that when I see teachers and educators not wanting to use tools, so often it's about them. It's about the things that they're worried are going to stand in their way. Like, oh, the kids are just going to play with the tools.
Right.
Oh, they're going to throw them. They're going to break them. They don't need them. And there is so much power in the concrete before the representational, before the abstract, and staying in that concrete space. And even once you get to the abstract, dipping back into the concrete, modeling things with tools. There is so much power in that. And the standards for mathematical practice are meant to go, K through 5. We're California, so we're Common Core state school, Common Core standard state. And the standards for mathematical practice are designed to go through K through 12. And so Math Practice 5 is all about using and selecting tools strategically, right? And so the idea is we use tools all through our educational career. We use tools as adults all the time. And to in any way stigmatize the use of tools or to make them inaccessible or to make it a failing that you would utilize tools is such a missed opportunity for students to dive in and make meaning of the mathematics.
So this makes me think of, John, we actually had a mentoring moment, a podcast episode not long ago with a kindergarten teacher, a super dedicated educator who was struggling because she said, I'm doing number talks and number talks in kind of more the traditional sense of a number talk where it was very much a provocation on the board and students were responding to it. And she had some concerns just about engagement or about, the level of complexity that she could really get to with the kindergarten standards. And I wish I had this conversation with you before that call, because it sounds to me like maybe a solution is a tool talk where we're still engaging in rich number concepts, exploring operators, exploring big ideas, but where students actually have a tool in their hand to be modeling. So can you tell us a little bit more? Because I think you hit on the point that sometimes we are afraid of it becoming play or not intentional or it being, distracting. So how do we leverage the tool talk structure to ensure that, we're maximizing our time with students, we're getting to the learning objective, but in a really meaningful, concrete way, building conceptual understanding?
Yeah. Well, I something you said, we get worried about the play, right? But the play should be there, right? We want the play there. And our students learn through play, especially our youngest students. And when I think about a tool talk, in my class, we would do tool talks on day 1. And we talked about a pencil and thinking of the pencil as a tool. we talk about our hands and our fingers being tools. And I've had parents and educators saying, they won't stop using their fingers. And it's, whoa, that's fantastic. Look at this tool. Look at this amazing tool, right? And in kindergarten, where our big focus is 5 and the power of 5. Hello. I mean, yes, it just is so powerful. And I really think that the power of tool talk, I mean, there's so many amazing educators thinking about tools, but what I get excited most about is really giving our students the opportunity to be curious about tools. And, we set up the format. Day one, we're sitting together and we introduce it and we talk about it, and everybody then gets one and they talk about when have you used it, where have you seen it, and it goes up on a chart. We put a picture of the pencil on there. Yeah, and we do talk about boundaries too. Like we can do some pretty cool things with pencils, right? But I also, you're not going to run. We don't want you to run with it. We're not, you're not poking someone with it. Like, I don't think that even through people, you're not going to play swords with it, right? Like, there's ways that you are giving boundaries and parameters while also like having students be curious about what can this tool do.
Right.
And then on that poster that we're going to keep adding to all year long, every time we introduce a new tool, it goes up there. And so when the students are having the opportunity to do some problem solving, one of my first questions would always be, what tools do you think you want to use? And having them select it. Now, when I'm teaching about a tool, like when I'm introducing a tool, I may encourage, we'll do activities like, let's say with a two-sided counter, two-color counter. And I want them to explore that tool in like a problem-solving environment. But when they're trying to like solve problems or solve maybe a story problem, I'm not going to tell them, but you have to use, like using a two-color counter, you have to solve it this way. Because I want them to look at the tools that are available to them and really use them to make sense. And I may encourage them, is there another tool you could show that same idea with? But I'm not pushing them like, oh, but nope, this is a problem where you have to use counters because there are 5, puppies on the playground, and so you have to have all the 5 counters. No, there's countless ways to solve the problems, and the students need to utilize the tools in ways that mean something to them. And I have had students who choose a tool that I would never think to use. And sometimes that tool is helpful. Sometimes they're able to use that in a productive way to help them like make sense of the problem. And sometimes they're like, that didn't help me. Right. And that's okay. Yeah, exactly. That's okay. It's part of the journey and part of the conversation.
Yeah. And I think what you're highlighting and making sure everyone, here listening also understands is that you're using the tool as it's intended to make sense of the mathematics or help make sense of the mathematics, and not the opposite, right? Like sometimes it's like we force the tool because it's like, we got to use this tool. But really what happens is when you use a tool, and this is true with models as well in class, as you say, move to the visual, version, is that we get hung up as teachers to like say, this is the model, this is the tool you want to use. And then it really becomes teaching the student how to use that tool without any sense attached to it. And it's no different than just going straight to the abstract and teaching them an algorithm, because they're seeing this tool as like this thing that actually a black box, but I don't really know why I'm using it or how it's useful to me. But I know how to use it because I've memorized it, or I've been shown how to use it, but I don't actually know how it makes sense to me. Like, it's so important that we treat those tools as useful for sense making or help to make sense of your sense, what you're trying to make sense of the mathematics, and not the opposite. Not just hey, let's just use this tool.
Right.
Yeah. What would you, if we think about some big aha moments that you're going to give in our session, the session at the summit, what would you say is another big kind of nugget that people are going to get when they attend your session?
Yeah. Well, I definitely hope that folks feel like they have some of their concerns addressed, right? I want to, whether you are really excited to use tools in your classroom or whether you're looking for new ways to use tools in your classroom, I want to also like acknowledge that it is not completely smooth and seamless, right? Students are going to build with the Unifix cubes, right? They are going to treat them as Legos, right? Like, yeah. And it's a conversation, it's a continual conversation, right? And it's not, I know that a lot of teachers have this concern about the mess or about, like you said, the play. And I want to be able to have conversations about that. And what are we worried about, right? What are we worried about when we're keeping those tools? And the ones that I most frequently hear is the play, it's the mess, and it's the becoming dependent on them. Those are the things that I most frequently hear as becoming dependent on the tools. Those are the things that I most frequently hear as concerns or worries when I talk to educators about using tools in their classroom.
If you could, I like this, your magic wand, and you could see these tools happen, being used routinely in every kindergarten class, and like, what are your go-to? It's like, if you could say, like, it would be great if I saw, this being used consistently, because from your experience, it's versatile. It applies to a lot of situations. It's going to position students to make sense of a lot of concepts from, the K-2 continuum. What would they be? Like, which ones do you want people to dust off first from their closets?
Oh, well, I will say that I think that is one of the keys, right? Is that for many educators, okay, if you look at where are your tools stored right now, they're probably in a cabinet and they probably have this, and a lot of them like come with the curriculum and they're probably still in the plastic wrap, right? So tools are like, they need to be out, and whichever tools you choose need to be out and accessible. And I remember going to a class, visiting a classroom, and that's one of the things I asked. I was, "Oh, where are your tools?" And he said, "Oh, they're over there." And to get to them, like, yes, they're out, but they're not in sight. They were under like the bottom layer of a cabinet, kind of pushed back. Didn't have a door on it, so it felt more accessible than being in a locked cabinet. But it definitely wasn't something that was like the norm that students go over to get tools. And so first I want to say whichever tools you're using, they should be out, accessible, and the tool use being celebrated. So like that first time someone uses a tool to solve a math problem or to help make sense, it's a big deal, right? We are celebrating it. We are like, whoa, I'm taking a picture, I'm projecting it, I'm saying, tell us, with the student's permission, tell us how did you use this tool? What's happening here? And I want that student to be talking about the way they use the tool to make sense. So it's difficult for me to say, I think there needs to be these specific tools. I think I'd rather say what you don't need to have. I think you don't need to have it's October. You don't need to have the Halloween erasers to solve a problem that's about pumpkins, right? You don't need to have the bear counters to solve a problem about bears, or little people to solve a problem. If you have that, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but like, give your students credit that first of all, their imaginations are like way more like tuned up than ours, right? And while that might be cute, like it can also be distracting in that suddenly these pumpkins are like, I'm creating a story about the pumpkins that has nothing to do with the math, right? And so I think sometimes there is a drive to get the perfect tool, and sometimes it can be as simple as, okay, well, what do I have available to me? Okay, I have I have Unifix cubes. Oh, but I don't have, the perfect color Unifix cubes, or I don't have, okay, but do you have Unifix cubes? Or I have stones, but I don't have the shiny stones, right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And so I really encourage folks to if you don't have tools, put out a call to your fellow teachers. There's a
They got
chance that someone
them.
has extra sets that either isn't, using them, or they have extras that they're like, I have so many Unifix cubes, I don't even know what to do with them. That desk is made of Unifix cubes, and they will share them with you gladly, and even find a buddy that you can pair with so you guys can explore tool use together, especially if it's something you're feeling intimidated by, right? It's okay to feel nervous to try something new. And it might be a hot mess. You say, oh my gosh, I am still pulling Unifix cubes out of my hair, right?
Right.
You're like, we're asking our students to be brave every day. And so I want to encourage educators to be brave and to really take a look at, okay, what are the obstacles that are like real obstacles to my making tools accessible and celebrated in my classroom? And what are ones that like, I'm kind of manufacturing because it's about me, right? Like I love the cute pumpkin erasers. So until I can get to the target dollar spot, I can't do this. I can't have my kids solve the problem. No.
Yeah. I love
Use
that
that
message.
money to buy something for yourself, So that's my answer, not answer to your question.
No, I love the message, because I think it's, even though it's like you said, it's an answer but not an answer. I think it's an appropriate and useful and a really important answer to be able to I've always said this too about many things. It's like sometimes you make a to-do list. It's like your not to-do list is sometimes or more important. And this is the kind of message you're sharing here with the audience. Bethany, if there, like, let's now imagine that we all came to the summit, we participated. Your session is over, the weekend is over. And people are, they're probably exhausted from, spending all weekend in sessions throughout that summit. What would you want their, say, big takeaway from your session, say, going into Monday to be?
Yeah, well, I love a good math conference. I love it. I love time to go to sessions and think about new ideas, or think about ideas maybe I've explored before, but thinking about them in a new way. So I am imagining that folks that are attending this summit are like going to be bursting with ideas, right? They have so many things they want to try, and oh my goodness, and I will just speak for myself, is that I get a little overzealous, and then the notes kind of trickle away, and my best intentions, if you don't try it right away. So whichever sessions you go to, I would hope that educators would pick an idea to try out, right? And or a person that they went to their session to have a conversation with again. And from the tool session that the conversation that I'll be leading, I really hope that folks, I mentioned this already, but find a buddy. If they haven't already, tried tool use, or they're interested in kind of shifting the way they think about tools, find a buddy that you can try it with, because it is way more fun to like deep dive into your classroom closets with somebody, right? So find somebody that you can say, okay, let's take an inventory. Let's take an inventory. You go to my classroom, let's take it all out. Let's see what we have. And then making a plan. Okay, fresh eyes on my classroom. How can I put these out so that they're more accessible? And even if you don't say anything on day one, even if you just have the tools out, what's going to happen if your students all of a sudden see these tools out in a way that they want, like, whoa, what's that? They're going to make space for that curiosity. And if you don't have a person, a coworker who you feel like you can collaborate or try things with, find a virtual one, right? Go on over to Twitter X, and go on to MTBOS, the math Twitter blogosphere, right? The hashtag, or come back onto the Math Moments Matter, and like making math moments that matter. I bet you there are other educators that would be excited to connect together, right? Or message me and say, hey, I don't really have a buddy I can try this with, but I want to try it. Eek, right? And and I'll cheer you on, you know? So I think it's, sometimes trying new ideas can feel overwhelming and scary. And I think too often as teachers, we can very easily be isolated and in our own silos, even if you have friends in your school community. And so how can you bravely try to build community around your learning? And so that's what I would encourage folks to do. Keep it simple. Uh, Give yourself the joy and the eke of making mistakes, and you know, treat yourself like a beginner too, even if you already feel like you're using tools in ways that you see your students using them. See if there's ways that you can shift your thinking, or partner with somebody that can help you shift your thinking.
So what I heard you say, Bethany, in that kind of closing takeaway is that we need to find our people. And that person might be in your building, but they might be in the larger math community. And you may,
For
I think
sure.
about, people that you've met through the internet, through conferences, who are essentially there to support and inspire you in this journey. And I think that is a game changer for so many of us.
And I want to say, like, if you ask someone and they say, I don't really have time or space for that, that's okay. Ask somebody else. You know,
somebody's out there.
Ask somebody else for one idea, like one thing. And I'm saying start small. Do an inventory of the tools that you have. And do not, whatever you do, I'm going to gently, lovingly, loudly encourage you. Whatever your inventory shows, don't go rush out to go buy more, right?
Right.
Pause, and just observe, and just see what's there.
Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for joining us today.
You.
We are very much looking forward to your session at this year's summit. But for those who may not be able to attend and are just really inspired by your work and want to maybe connect with you, like you suggested, how can people find you?
Well, I technically am still on X, so I'm at Lockhart EDU, LOCKHART EDU, and I have not sent out messages in a long time, but I'm reading and learning.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are like that. A lot of us are like, I haven't been over there in a bit, but I'm still kind of in there somewhere.
Yeah, right. So they feel free to message me that way, and happy to engage in conversation about this work.
Awesome. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes. And everyone, make sure, if you've not yet, gone over to the Summit website to check on registration, get on over to summit.makemathmoments.com and get yourself registered. Bethany, thanks so much.
Thank you.